Well, right now we're taking you live to Abuja, where the Oxford Global Think Tank Leadership Conference is happening, and the theme for this year is Better Leadership for a Better Nigeria.
Who are the head boys and head girls of their various schools? Ibrahim Abdul Habir. Please a round of applause as he makes his way to the stage. Beulah Atta, Michelle Charles Obiang, and Samuel Okobi. A round of applause, please, for them as they lead their way to the stage. Thank you. Please, you may be seated. If you're standing in front of me, yes, this way. Yes, just stand. No, please stand. It's a standing session. Thank you very much. So, as you very well know, we are here to discuss leadership. May I ask you, in one word, what does leadership mean to you?
Ladies and gentlemen, I am by name Sanusi II, the college captain of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, Abuja. In one word, how I can describe leadership is influence. Because you cannot call yourself a leader when the people that are following you don't actually see something positive inside of you that drives them to follow you. So as leaders, I actually encourage you all that we should have a sense of influence towards our followers, to make them see our true potential and follow us in obedience to our specified rules in our society. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please pass the mic to Michelle. Yes, your turn. What does leadership mean to you in one word?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I think I'm Charles Obiang with the position of the head of the Government College. Leadership is the act of being elected to be able to control and keep the authority people under you, lead them to the right path, and make sure the place in which you're leading is developed and they are always doing the right thing.
Excellent, thank you. Ibrahim? Thank you. So leadership means responsibility to you. Beulah.
Good morning, everyone. I am Emir of Kano and college captain of the Federal Government College. Leadership means being a patriotic citizen, being influential, and you are called to serve. You should not be served, but you should serve. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So leadership is a call to service. I understand the vision you have shared because 13 years ago, just like yourselves, I was a head girl of my own federal government girls' college. And now the conversation is all yours. So how do you envision young leaders like yourselves shaping the future of Nigeria?
When you're being patriotic, because patriotic means being fair, empathy, and love. So when you're being patriotic and you love your children or anything, the people under you, I'm very sure that the conviction is very bright and lovely future for the society or nation.
Thank you. So leadership to you is patriotism. Excellent. So what would you say patriotism means? If someone were to display patriotism, what would it look like?
Not being biased, being like loving people, caring for people, being fair to people.
Okay, so patriotism is love, care, and not being biased. And Beulah, Michelle, what would you say? How would you envision leadership as a young leader in Nigeria?
I personally envision leadership as discipline from my school because we're leaders of today and of tomorrow. Because we're able to enforce discipline in the school, people grow up with that attitude of they are in a position of leadership, they'll be able to read and write with fairness and empathy for others and people around them.
So leadership to you is discipline. Excellent. So can I ask a follow-up question to that? Do you think we are disciplined as Nigerians?
As Nigerians, majority of us are disciplined because every year everybody went to school.
Go on.
Because speaking, let's say, presently, everybody sitting here is sitting down and listening to what's going on. That's discipline. Because if we were not disciplined, we would not have been able to sit down quietly and listen to the part of going on right now.
All right. So we have the discipline to comport ourselves in this very prestigious environment. All right, that's fine. Samuel, please. How do you envision young leaders like you shaping the future of Nigeria?
How I envision young leaders like shaping the future of Nigeria is actually through intelligence. Because once you have that value of intelligence in you, you stand by whatever you say. You know that you see something and end up being another thing. So as future leaders, I advise you all that you should please be having that value of intelligence. Not just saying what you are not doing, but saying it and what you are doing according to it. So that the people that are following you will also adhere to what you are saying and also what you are doing to ensure a better society.
Thank you very much. Ibrahim, you have the floor. Love, peace, and unity. That's how you envision. Please, a round of applause for him. Love, peace, and unity. Because with love, peace, and unity, we can achieve our vision for Nigeria. So, in your words, what would you say is the single biggest obstacle to these values that you have mentioned today? So, what are the obstacles that prevent us from achieving these visions for Nigeria?
Using my school as an example, I would say the biggest barrier to discipline is fear of influence. You will always want to do what your friends are doing, even though you know that is wrong. But a disciplined person will always be there to correct and tell people this is not right, this is not what you to do. And if people are not ready to listen, they report it to the school management or the authorities in the school because of their discipline and they are not ready to follow their friends or their mates to do the wrong thing at the wrong time.
Thank you. So paired with influence is an obstacle to discipline. All right, Samuel.
Okay. An obstacle to intelligence, like I said earlier, is actually as leaders, as well as actually follow what to say, so that people that are actually under us can actually obey us. It's not that you actually see one thing and end up doing the other thing actually. And you have to have the value of respect amongst one another. Because they see that respect is reciprocal. Understand? So once you actually respect those that are under us and those of us that you have as brothers, we actually foster a bigger nation and a bigger society.
Thank you very much. So we've heard from our young leaders, patriotism, love, peace, and unity, discipline, and integrity. And they haven't just shared ideas. I'm sure they are going to make active commitments when they go back to their respective schools towards building a future that we envision for Nigeria. And in closing, I would say that Nigeria's trajectory and future will not just be left to fate or make mere coincidence or something that will happen in a distant future. It's going to be shaped today by the values and civic consciousness of our young people like Beulah, Mitchell, Ibrahim, and Samuel. So let their commitments be our challenge. Let's find one initiative in our corner and start building the future that we envision for Nigeria today. Thank you very much.
Please come back. Please come back. Can we put our hands together, please, on the knees, loved ones? Let me invite their mommy here. Please join us for a photograph. Somebody has to stand here. That needs to stick, please. Please mark their faces. 2030 honorable ministers, civilian governors of states as candidates. Thank you very much. Let's usher them down with a round of applause, please. Thank you. And so, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome here two prominent people who are like these children several years ago. First, I'd like to welcome here the former President of the Senate and Chairman of the National Assembly, His Excellency Emir GCON. I welcome you. And also here is a man that understands what it means to lead Nigeria with courage, competence, and compassion. Only, was it not yesterday or thereabouts, he delivered the aspiring governor of Ekiti State, and he's back in Abuja. Former chairman of the Nigerian Governors Forum, former governor of Ekiti State, Dr. Kayode Fayemi, is also here with us. Thank you very much. Thank you. So we will quickly have our co-chairs talk to us. And it gives me great pleasure to welcome first here a man whose life and career I greatly admire. He had a distinguished career in banking and public service, culminating in becoming the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria. Moral authority. I'm very happy to welcome here His Highness Sanusi II, the Emir of Kano.
Honorable Minister, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. I have two roles here. I'm supposed to be a co-chair and I'm also on a panel. So I'm going to try not to say anything that I'm supposed to say on the panel. I'd like to congratulate Aruma on this occasion of the presentation of her book. As you all know, Aruma and myself worked together. I was at the Central Bank when she was at SEC. And I remember when I went to Oxford in 2020 as a visiting fellow, I told her I was going to use it. And in 1 year, I had completed my memoirs, and she had not completed her book. And she threatened to complete and publish. My memoirs have been complete for years. I'm still deciding whether to publish them now or publish them posthumously. And when I say posthumous, maybe after my death or after the death of some of the people mentioned in the book. But I have an interesting story in the book. You know, one day in a forum such as this, when I was governor, I spoke about the economy. And I spoke about some things that I felt we were doing wrong. And a few days after that, to my shock, I received a query. It's the one time in my life, one time in my entire life that I got a query for coming to criticize government policy when I was governor. And the person who gave that query is sitting in this room. He was former Secretary of the Government of the Federation, Senator Ayim, who insists that he was only carrying out instructions. But since I see him, I keep reminding him every time, he's the one man that gave me a query in my life for criticizing government policy. So, Senator, it's good to see you. And I will continue, as I've always done, to commend government on the right policies and also point out areas of improvement. And the way we're going to continue to make progress in this country as leaders is to be able to introspect, to self-criticize, and to look for people who actually tell us what we need to do better. I think when we talk about leadership, the worst leaders are those who are surrounded by praise singers. And I think we are fast becoming a country now where we tend to tell our leaders what they want to hear rather than what they need to hear. I hope today at the various panels on leadership, we will continue to do what is right, tell the leaders what they're doing right, tell them what we think they're doing wrong, suggest to them areas of improvement. I'll stop here and hand over to my senior and leader at Peter's side, who was my prefect when I was in Form 1 in King's College, and he was the most wicked prefect you can ever think about. And he also claims that he was wicked to me, and if he was not wicked to me, I would not have turned out as well as I did. So he takes responsibility for it. Thank you very much.
Let's appreciate him, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. The Emir of Kano, we thank you. We appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you very much. And so the second co-chair, an entrepreneur, an investment banker, an economist, founder, Anna Foundation. Please join us and welcome here, Mr. Atedo Peterson.
Your Excellency, the former governor of Ekiti State, Honorable Minister for Finance and the Coordinating Minister, I'm glad to see that you're alive and well after all the rumors. Of course, I will not respond to the comments made by the co-chair, because everybody knows that the only way to bring up young rascals is to discipline them early. Then they become perfect gentlemen. You know, I advise you as well that use that same principle when dealing with your children. Then, of course, I mean, why are we here? I'll come now to our big, wonderful hostess, Aruma Ote. I don't know why all of you are here, but I know why I'm here. I'm here because Aruma bullied me to come here. She didn't give me a choice. She pestered me and harassed me to the point where I decided that it was easier to attend and do her bidding than to incur her wrath. So as those who know her very well know that the fear of Aruma is the beginning of wisdom. So, ladies and gentlemen, I will just make a few comments, and because I want the discussions proper to commence. You know, the thing I like about this particular event is the introduction of the word leadership. Because I think Africa's biggest problem has been the failure of leadership. What separates Africa from many other continents is not colonialism, because they had that in Asia as well. Even within Africa, what separates some countries like Rwanda is leadership. And I think leadership failure has been Africa's portion. And I know that the focus here is on Nigeria, but I want us to really ask ourselves, because people in this room are part of what I was called the top 1% of Nigerians, in almost all respects, definitely in terms of income and other things. So what is it that we need to do to ensure that we have good leadership? Please, if you notice, I'm talking broadly. I didn't say leadership only in Nassau Rock. I'm talking about leadership across the entire spectrum. What makes some countries in Europe function, what makes some in Asia function, is good leaders at various levels. In China, you cannot appear at the very top unless you have been a good leader, a proven leader at various levels earlier. In Nigeria, somebody who has been a failure all his life will suddenly find himself being uplifted and given a leadership position that he barely understands. Now, we can excuse the days of the military, and I actually love the fact that there are several past very senior military rulers, including some who have been head of state, who actually confess that the problem they see is that it was about 5-10 years after they were in their highest position of authority that they now actually became ready to be leaders. So they were thrust into a position of leadership at the time when they knew little or nothing and were not even remotely prepared. Now, you can blame the military for that, but since the return of democracy, the leadership that we get at all levels is in the hands of the Nigerian people. So we must take responsibility. If in my LGA there is poor leadership, I must be partly responsible, because part of my contribution to Nigeria is supposed to help to ensure that we get good leadership at all levels. So ladies and gentlemen, I will just stop there and talk. So what have I said? There's a leadership challenge. And if the only thing that this conference ends up doing is helping us to make significant progress, building a consensus in our thoughts as to how or what we have to do to get the right kind of leadership. And for the avoidance of doubt, even what Aruma has done today is one way of showing leadership. I thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much for your love for Nigeria and what you have done in the area of banking, investment, even ANA, JET, and all of that. Can we put our hands together one more time for our co-chair? We appreciate you. And as I was coming up there, I looked into the audience and I saw the managing director of Sterling Bank hiding somewhere at the back. Let's appreciate him inside class room. Thank you very much. Thank you. So, Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we will now be moving into our formal opening. I will be starting with a video message from one of Nigeria's finest, former Minister of Finance, former Managing Director of World Bank, now the Director General of the World Trade Organization, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. Please, can we have you now?
Dear Aruma, dear friends, we are living in turbulent times with geopolitical tensions, unprecedented global trade disruptions, and the diminution of aid and FDI flows, and increasing global and country level indebtedness. It is a world beset by uncertainty, which is then clouding economic decision-making. At such times, nations will need to look inward to put their own domestic economic house in order. They need to pay great attention to structural and institutional reforms to drive economic growth. This needs leadership, and this is where Aruma's leadership initiative is so important. We need good, courageous leadership at all levels of responsibility in the public and private sectors. This initiative will help us get there. Let me seize this opportunity to congratulate you, Aruma, and wish you all a very successful session.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. It is now time for me to welcome here the man that we're all happy to see, in spite of everything, and you will continue to be healthy and strong to serve Nigeria. Is the Honorable Minister of Finance and the Coordinating Minister for the Economy. Let me welcome here Mr. Emir Wale Edun.
Thank you very much, and a very good morning. Also, I'm very happy to be here. Your Excellency, the former governor of the Ekiti State, Your Excellency, the former Senate President, Your Highness, the founder of ANAP Foundation, Mr. Peterside, my friend and brother, and of course, the person that has brought us here today, Ms. Aruma Ote. I congratulate you. You're, just as we saw with the Director General of WTO, you're one of our best, you're one of our finest, you're one of our top leaders. You've served Nigeria, you've served internationally, and now with today, you are once again taking the lead. And I commend the fact that you started with the future. At Peterside talked that leaders are groomed, they are prepared, they are trained. And this is the beginning of their training. So very well done, and also very well done to the young people from the various schools. I'm glad they haven't put up a slide, because, you know, today is a very important occasion. There's a rich panel and list of people that we'll be able to learn from. And so it's an occasion for dialogue. It's an occasion for interaction. His Highness had said, look, that government has to be able to listen, has to be able to listen to take the praise, has to be able to listen to where suggestions are being made for improvement. And I think it's a fair comment. Today we're talking about leadership, and I'll just briefly say that, yes, Africa, with all its human resources, and of course, that is the most important resource that Africa has now. We are going to be the world's workforce. Africa will provide, by 2050 or so, 25% of the world's workforce. We are the young continent compared to the aging continents of Asia, aging continents of Europe. So we have to prepare ourselves for that historic role. In Nigeria, leadership changed in 2023, and under President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, it changed for the better. If you look at the record, if you look at the statistics, if you look at the progress that has been made since 2023. However, the statistics, the improved growth rate, the stable exchange rate, the lowering inflation, those are just one side of the story. And the most important aspect is the human side, the effect on people's daily experience, the cost of food, the cost of transport. how they are living their lives. And it is to that I think, rather than focusing on the various statistics, what I will say is that there is an attempt to ensure that the pains of reform have immediately been alleviated. And that's why there is in place a transparent, accountable, and robust system of providing direct payments in the first instance to a total of 15 million households. And you know, in the holding area, before we joined this gathering, there were comments that in their villages, in their towns, they had not had reports of anybody receiving those payments. So immediately we called for the data, and shortly we'll give them the data of the people that have received first, second, and/or third payments directly, because each individual is identified by their NIN, by their national identity number, and they are paid digitally, either to their bank account or to their mobile wallet. So there's accountability, transparency, there's a record. Of course, we would like to roll out an even bigger program of direct payments, but that's a key part of alleviating and ensuring that the reforms also produce gains right down to the lowest levels. And I will augment that particular item of reaching the poorest and the most vulnerable, and even as many people lower down the ladder, by saying that just recently, the National Economic Council, and with His Excellency Mr. President also giving his weight, his approval, and his patronage to a system of ward-based development. So there is in place a ward-based development program that will take resources, that will take information, that will take funding to the 8,809 wards in the 774 local governments. And this will be a way of empowering economically active people at the ward level. Small businesses, cottage industries, they will be helped, they will be supported, they will be financed, they will be funded. And that is a key element in ensuring that the benefits of the reform that is going on now in Nigeria and the improvements reach right down to the world level. And I think when we look at what we heard from the young people today, they talked about empathy, they talked about integrity, they talked about love, and they talked about responsibility. And I think that way of thinking is certainly the way that we want our young leaders thinking. We want them to be caring. We want them to be responsible. We want them to be thinking for the many rather than the few. And essentially, I think in Nigeria of today, the emphasis is not just, and it was pointed out in our conversations, it is not just on the figures, the growth figures, and so on and so forth. More importantly, it is about reaching the people right down at the ward level and assisting them to be able to prosper, to be able to produce more, and to be able to live better lives. So on that note, Ms. Aruma-Ote, I congratulate you on this all-important conference, and on your behalf, I thank so many distinguished people who have come here to identify with you, to be part of this, and to be part of the conversation about the all-important item of leadership in Nigeria, leadership in Africa. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. We appreciate you. Thank you. I'd like to welcome here Dr. Jobson Ewalefo, Director General, Infrastructure Concession Regulatory Commission. Is here with us. Where are you, sir, Doctor? Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. And also here is the DG Debt Management Office, Ms. Patience Omiha, is here with us. Thank you very much. The CEO of Emerging Africa Group, Dr. Oluwatoyin Sani, is also here. Thank you very much. Thank you. Let me, in the same breath, say thank you to some of the people that have made this event possible. Sponsors and partners. Chapel Hill, the gold sponsor, we say thank you to you. Thank you. For silver, Emerging Africa has also been part of it. We thank you very much. Thank you. For bronze, we have the Active Edge Technologies. Thank you. Thank you very much. And a special thank you to SEC for being a wonderful partner. And all the media partners, we appreciate you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, let me welcome all of you to our second panel, which is on economic leaders. Our moderator is my friend. But beyond that, he's one of Nigeria's finest broadcasters. He's a subject matter expert, project management expert, an ICT consultant, broadcast journalist, TV presenter. Right now, he's the managing director of News Central Television. Welcome here, Mr. Kayode Akitani. Okay, these are members of the panel. I'd like to welcome here the capital market expert, treasurer, former vice president of the World Bank, and the lady that has brought all of us here, Ms. Aruma-Ote, founder, Oxford Global Think Tank. The second panelist is His Highness Muhammad Sanusi II, the Emir of Kano. And now the other co-chair, the founder, Anna Foundation, Mr. Atedo Peterside.
have an outcome that says practical approach from leads to consensus to drive a collective articulation of the moral, strategic attributes of economic statesmanship, courage to act, patience to sequence, and integrity to sustain reform beyond 10-year cycles anchored in responsibility and accountability. I have to read that out so that everybody gets to hear what's the objective of this conversation. And when I was going through it and I was preparing for this conversation, I remembered that His Royal Highness, 2011, 12, 13, and so on, I had a conversation with him about the state of my own economy. And I also remember that at that time I was chairman of a different television station. And I do remember a number of interviews that I had about the state of the economy. So that's where I would want to start, because before we talk about the end results, I'd like us to just dig in for a few years, at least over a decade back, to see how we got here and how we go from here. So, I will start with you, sir. I'll quote your words to you. What you said in 2012, and I'd like everybody to listen to what you said. He said the level of ignorance in this country is amazingly high. Of the 203 billion additional revenue which will accrue to the LGAs on account of the removal of subsidy, Kano State, he said, LGAs in Kano alone will get the highest of 11.7 billion. This was in 2012. So instead of the people that kind of money for their 11.7 billion for their LGAs, they are abusing His Royal Highness sitting beside me here, who is the central bank governor at that time, for arguing to pay them an extra 11.7 billion, an amount which is otherwise have been consumed largely in Lagos and neighboring countries. Now, let me ask you, sir, as a starting point, we assume that this government has moved things, the needle has moved, has shifted. A number of people, including His Royal Highness, commended the moves in terms of removal of subsidy. The leadership quality required to change the narrative in terms of subsidy. He said it was a big move by the president. What would you do differently, considering the fact that what you advocated about 12 years ago has been activated and has been connected by His Royal Highness, but yet the people are crying, and I'm a journalist, I talk to a lot of people, and their response has been, we are hungrier and poorer and more impoverished than ever. What would you do differently as a leader if you had the mantle of power? Let's start from there, sir.
I hope it's not going to still enough. And also, very good your microphone.
How's that? What are we doing?
You know, I'm somebody who I believe is speaking the truth all the time.
Don't give them the mic to students.
So you're putting me in 2012. You can put me in 2025, issues will not change. I'm not one of those people when you're out of government, you fight against fuel subsidy. When you're in government, you advocate fuel subsidy. That's part of Nigeria's and Africa's problem. People take positions not based on the truth, but based on what personal agenda they are pursuing. So the first one to give credit to this government for removing the fuel subsidy, do some of us are coming from the first economic summit over 30 years ago. But the same president was taking the blame for sabotaging the efforts to remove the fuel subsidy in the past in 2012. The speeches are there. So, but you know, they say the best time to have planted a tree was 25 years ago. The second best time is now. So let's focus on the now. The important thing is that the government has done the correct thing in terms of removing an unaffordable subsidy. The state government has done the correct thing, which has been done before, to give us what I would consider to be widely market-determined exchange rates, which gives you some exchange rate stability. So you ask me what would I have done differently? That question shows so I think anybody with the right brain on his head would have done those two things. But guess what? How long does it take to do those things? I can mention previous central bank governors on a particular day. Abdul Ahmed moved the exchange rate from 1 to 1 to 4 to 1. It was market-determined exchange rates. On the different days, the exchange rate moved from 8 to 1 to 18 to 1, and we had equilibrium. On that past CBA governors like my friend here, we had market-determined exchange rates largely. So that's a one-day action. You buy people there from the first day. What differentiates you thereafter is your subsequent actions. So those measures improve fiscal balance. They give all three tiers of government so much more revenue. And that's where the problem starts. What is the point of giving a thief more revenue if it's only going to steal it? So across all the local governments of Nigeria, across every state government, and at the federal level, the real test is what is being done with that revenue in their hands. Is that revenue supposed to be used to fuel 400 cars to escort the president to the airport and burn all the revenue in the process? Is that what you did it for? Let me tell you what the correct thing was. The real difficulty, the real action, the real result was to help to eliminate poverty, was to get the economy functioning. As soon as we did those two things, which could be done, each of them will take a day, an announcement. It's your subsequent actions. When the economic summit turned 25 years, I was in this same room. I recommended that the government then should remove fuel subsidy. I also said, but as soon as you do it, the following day, even the day before, start distributing cash to the poorest Nigerians. They all have names. The national ID card is a payment-enabled instrument. If you give every poor person in Nigeria, poor adult, 5,000 naira, and you remove subsidy, for a man who was getting zero, he's just received 5,000. So, but if you remove the subsidy, the finance minister is right there. I think it was 8 million people have received transfers. What is 8 million out of 230 million? That's where the problem is. There are countries where when they did their cash transfers, it was to all the poor people in the country immediately. So I'm answering your question only, what would have been done differently? I'm not saying it's achievable in 24 hours, but these are the things that have caused the pain. And all this talk about, oh, after the pain comes the gain. It is true if after the pain, you carry out all the other supporting reforms, improve efficiency, improve government spending. People talk about trying to implement, to eliminate wastage and so on. But if after the pain, what you do is to continue regular spending that is going on all over the nation, then that pain can go on forever. It's not true that gain follows pain. Gain follows pain only if you are doing the right things after putting the pain in place. And it's the same too with exchange rates. So now, we have an economic system. I'll be fair. This economy works very well for people who are friends of the government because they can invest. And when the obstacles come, they have the clout to negotiate their way through all those obstacles. But we want an economy where you don't need to know the government to invest here and do business. I'm not criticizing this government. This was the challenge that any and every government that took those measures was supposed to address immediately after. So I can clap for you for market-determined exchange rates. I can clap for you for removing fuel subsidy. Those are one-day actions. If you want me to keep on clapping for you, show me the rest of your actions after those two things. Because those are the things interpret the big difference between investor confidence, creating an environment where people feel they can invest, they're looking at that before, and all the supportive things that were required. So I will just stop there, but let me just warn you, Mr. Moderator, so on this panel, I'm the oldest person. So it doesn't matter what you ask me, I will answer what I want to answer. Thank you.
All right, sir. I will let you. Let me come to this side, and thank you, Mr. Atadopiti. I have great respect for you, and I love the way your mind works, and the fact that you speak truth to power at all times. In all the years that I've been in this country, I've never known a time that you shied away from speaking the truth, no matter who's on the spot. So please, another round of applause for Mr. Atadopiti. Your Honors, I remember in those days when you were the CBN governor, we know all the conversation that you had about this same issue, and the fact that what is required was the leadership to take the right action, and like Mr. Atadopiti said just now, not just the one-day action, but the policies and processes that follow, making sure they are executed. In fact, I remember there was a specific time that you said you've done your best with monetary policy, and that's your job as the CBN governor. The rest of it is left in the hands of those who are politicians, and I think that was part of the reason you said you got a query from the SGF. So you got a query at that point, and it led to so many other things. But let me ask you, sir. Now, in terms of those in power in Nigeria listening, several Nigerians commended the position of the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, when he appointed both Mr. Wale Edun and Mr. Emir of Kano. So they said these are some of the best brains and best minds, and yet we're in a situation where people are crying. Is it that Nigerians, and I would refer to even the time of President Jonathan, some of the best brains, including the likes of Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, including the likes of even my dear sister and friend here, Aruma Otewa, in governments are working for government agencies? Is it that the people at the helm of leadership in Nigeria just consistently don't listen to advice and fail to do the right thing beyond the one single action that Mr. Atadopiti described as a 24-hour decision?
Thank you very much, Kaide. Well, first of all, let me say that it's extremely important for us to try to understand economics and how the economy works. And a failure to understand economics sometimes leads to misplaced expectations. There's a role for the central bank. There's a role for the Ministry of Finance. You've got monetary policy, you have fiscal policy, you have structural policies, you have institutional reforms. And yes, I was one of those who commended the appointment of Wale Edun and Emir of Kano. So these are two gentlemen that I've known for many years, and I have never had any question about their competence. And if you try to assess them, you've got to ask, what were they supposed to achieve? Okay. Now, going back to the beginning, you talk about 2012, and you talk about the suffering from removal of subsidy. It's simple arithmetic. If you pay 80 naira or 65 naira per litre, and you need to pay 160 naira per litre, costs will go up. There will be hardship. And the duty of leaders is to understand that there will be a cost to removing subsidy. And I said in 2012, if you remember from the town hall meeting, to say that there will be hardship is not an economic argument. To say that there will be a cost to removing subsidy is not an economic argument. The economic argument is, this is the cost of removing the subsidy. What is the cost of not removing the subsidy? Are you making a choice? We were in a situation where we had a hedge that we called it. It was not a subsidy, it was a hedge. You see, a subsidy by definition, the government says, I'll pay X% of the price. That's a subsidy. I'll pay 20% of the price, whatever it is. Price goes up, you pay more, I pay more. Price goes down, you pay less, I pay less. What we had in this country is what in risk management you call a naked hedge, the worst possible derivative you can have. The government said to Nigerians, 200 million Nigerians, you will not pay more than X amount per litre on petrol, no matter what the price of petrol is. So all price goes up from $40 to $140, the federal government pays the difference. Exchange rate moves from 155 to 300, the government pays the difference. Interest rates move from 5% to 15%, the government pays. Remember, the price of petrol and what the calculations include the cost of crude, the cost of refined product, the cost of transportation, even interest rates, demurrage. If you look at the template, all of those amounts were being absorbed. The federal government was saying, I have an unlimited pocket. So we moved from a point where we were using revenues to pay subsidy to where we had to borrow money to pay subsidy, to where we had to borrow money to pay interest on the borrowed money. We had become bankrupt. Anyone who takes a naked hedge ends up being bankrupted, especially with a commodity where you don't control the price. So this was the point in 2012. Now, if Nigerians had allowed the Jonathan government to remove the subsidy in 2011, that would have been pain. But that pain would have been a very, very tiny fraction of what we are facing today. This is the cost of delay. At that time, we worked out the numbers of the central bank, and I stood up and put my credibility on the line and said, remove the subsidy today, inflation moves up from 11% to 13%. I will bring it down in a year. We will not have had 30-something% inflation. Okay? That was where we were. Now, people like my friend Kaide Fayemi here and his APC friends had occupied Nigeria, came out on the streets, told us we could not do it. And I remember calling one of my friends. And this is, we should talk about these things because it's important. There's a kind of poetic justice. That it is actually the people who led the Occupy Nigeria movement who ended up seeing the problem, inheriting the problem, and having to do it. I remember calling one of my friends at that time. I said, look, one of my closest friends, say, you know that what we're doing is right. He said, yes, I know. I said, why? He said, well, I'm in opposition. My job is to make the government look like, you are the governor of central bank, you go and defend your government. Just politics. And the only reason the government compromised at that time, maybe we should know this, the only reason the government compromised and did 50% to 100% was Boko Haram. Because there were thousands of Nigerians on the streets in Lagos and Kano and Kaduna and all that. At the time when we had suicide bombers in the country. And there was a fear, if one day one of these suicide bombers goes to these Nigerians and explodes a bomb and you have 200 corpses, it will no longer be about subsidy. So you have to give President Jonathan the credit. He was determined to do it, but at the end of the day, the compromise was made, okay, to save Nigerian lives. Now, what has the central bank achieved? Central bank's role is to provide stability. The central bank does not deliver growth. It does not deliver employment. It provides an environment that is conducive to growth. Okay? Now, and the central bank has achieved it. You don't want inflation moving from 10% to 15% to 20% to 25% because, as I said a few weeks ago at NESG, Nigerians don't realize that we were on the brink of hyperinflation. Beyond a certain rate of inflation, it becomes runaway inflation, you can't control it. You buy rice in the morning, by the time you come at 12 noon, the price has changed. By 4 p.m. it has changed. This is what happened in Zimbabwe, It happened in Venezuela, it happened in Argentina. We were heading for Nigeria. We were printing money like that. We're heading for Nigeria, went in the direction of Zimbabwe under Mugabe, or Uganda under Idi Amin. So inflation has been raging. The runaway devaluation has been stopped. Yes, we are at 1,400. Nobody wants an error at 1,400. But it's better to know that it will be 1,400 for the next 6 months, 8 months, 10 years, than to think it's 1,400 today, 2,000 tomorrow, 2,500, which is really... So the central bank's job is not to give you a strong naira. The central bank's job is not to give you low prices. The central bank's job is to reduce the volatility in the price level. And so when you assess the central bank, you've got to say, what has it done? Have you reduced volatility inflation? Have you brought it down? We're going to bring it down to single year or your way. There's still a long way to go. Okay, I would like to see inflation come down to under 10%. It will take time. But in terms of stopping it from runaway, it has. Exchange rate volatility has been reduced. Now on the fiscal side, and we talk about tax reforms. Those reforms, the Tax Act only takes off next year. So we must remember that before the tax reforms have kicked in, we have increased government revenues. We have brought down debt service ratios from 100 and something percent to about 40%. Okay, so on the revenue side, you've got to give the finance ministry credit for what is done. Now, is there more to do? Yes. And the way, where the problem is what Atedo has mentioned, is the expenditure side.
Yes.
Okay? The quality of spending. And some of these things, we've got to be honest with ourselves. Look, why do we need 48 ministers? Why do we need dozens of vehicles when we're moving around in convoys or traveling all over the country?
So, Your Highness, that brings me to that question which I'm asking, which is, do we have an affliction that affects the hearing of our leaders and are able to listen to the good advice?
No, I mean,
if you have an affliction, we'll get a doctor to fix it.
Yes, so your question started with the finance minister and central bank governor, and we say that there are things that are beyond them when you're dealing with the economy. So I would go along with that agenda and say you've got to look at overheads. You've got to look at things like your contract processing, procurement process, okay? There's still questions about inflated contracts. There are questions about transparency. There are questions, all this money is coming into the federal, and this at federal, state, and local level, there are serious questions about how the money that is being raised is being used. And the arithmetic is simple. If you stop paying subsidy, why are we still borrowing more? Because if you fill the hole, we should have the revenue to fund expenditure. But we fill in one hole and dig in a bigger hole. So this government needs to look at institutions. It needs to look at the quality of spending. It needs to understand that if you keep making more money and keep blowing it away, you're going to undo what you have done. But apart from that, I think a lot of good has been done, okay, but we still have to look at what needs to.
Okay, I would ask this question, Your Royal Highness, one more time, and I hope I get a straight answer to it. Nigerian leaders, from as long as I can remember since I've been in this country, they seem to not be listening to wise counsel. Even the man that you said was President Jonathan at the time had the good counsel to say, no matter what happens with Boko Haram and the rest of them, this is wise counsel, not just from the then SLS governor of CBN, from a great mind like Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. Everybody said this is the right thing. In fact, I remember you mentioned on Channels Television, where I was the GM then, that we're on the precipice, about to fall. You said it. So why will that president not take the right action, and then the one after, and now the one that is there now? Knowing what the answers are from the experts, the likes of Wale Edun, the likes of Yomi Kadoso, and all the other brilliant minds that are working with him, why are they not doing it?
Look, in fairness,
affliction or what?
No,
I ask the question one more time because we have to
on
move
this
on.
question, in fairness to Jonathan, he took the right decision. And look, I'm not a fan of Jonathan. He suspended me from my job, okay? So okay?
But you have to commend him, okay? President Jonathan took the advice and agreed to move subsidy. As a government, we all agreed to move the subsidy, and we're determined to move the subsidy. The only reason we stopped at 50%, like I said, was the threat to people's lives. Now, but to your question, why do Nigerian leaders not listen? What my experience, okay, with talking to many of the leaders is they listen to so many people and they decide that they're going to accept those that tell them what they want to hear. We have too many sycophants in government. Look, you need to see, when I got, you sit in a meeting and the president is there and people are speaking and the first thing they say is, Mr. President, I would like to thank you for your leadership to this country. In fact, you know, God has blessed Nigeria by making us your leader. If you were not there, I don't know where we would be. By the time these people lay this foundation, it is their advice that the president takes. Okay? People like me who would say, Mr. President, there are some things that are wrong. When you leave, they say you are his enemy. Okay? So the problem is that when leaders allow themselves to be surrounded by praise singers and by sycophants, they never get good advice. So people like Achejo and myself are always enemies of state because people don't like hearing the bad news. There was something we didn't say to Buhari about printing money, about waste and means, about the exchange rate, about subsidy. But every time you spoke about the economy, it was seen as a personal attack against the president. And there are people around him who convinced him that this person is your enemy. That's why he's saying this. Okay. So we need to begin to ask as leaders, who do we surround ourselves with? And please, those who are ministers, are those who speak to the president, it is not to your benefit to turn yourselves, you disgrace yourselves, you debase yourselves by turning yourselves into praise singers.
Thank you very much, guys. We have very little time, but I'm going to crave your indulgence to extend by a few more minutes because I've not even asked the convener of this meeting any question at all. So the first question I will ask you will be that you've heard what Mr. Atedopite said and you've heard His Royal Highness. And I noticed that the first thing you did this morning was to bring the next generation of leaders onto this platform to speak. And I have a number of friends who are doing the same thing, thinking that we have to look at the next generation. You said a book, which I saw last night when we were having dinner, you said all hands on deck. And I'm thinking, how do we get all hands on deck when there is no succession plan for the young people to take over? And I'll give you just one example. I think it was you and I that had a chat yesterday or the day before, and we were talking about a young man, brilliant, very intelligent young man, that had a chance to be in one of the states in the North Central to get a ticket. And this young man was deprived of the opportunity to get a ticket because they said there was somebody else, much older, that has been in the system for much longer, that they had to give the ticket to, despite the fact that this guy was brilliantly positioned to do a great job. So help us understand, how do we bring all hands on deck for the future of the nation so that we have the right kind of leadership that we have been craving for the last 65 years?
Well, first of all, since this is the first time I'm speaking, and I may not have a chance to share some thoughts more generally, so just permit me to first of all just welcome everybody, but also just say thank you to each one of you who shares the vision of Oxford Global Think Tank, which is to have a non-partisan focus on how we can unleash more globalism, unleash the potential of society. But I think our country, Nigeria, is a great example of what the possibilities are when we take collective responsibility, when all hands are on deck. In putting together this conference, we really focused on a number of things. One of them was all hands on deck, which is why you have an economic leaders panel, you have a public sector leaders panel, you have future leaders, emerging leaders, male leadership, female leadership, because at Oxford Global Think Tank, we do think that we need to continue to focus, as the Honourable Minister of Finance shared with us some of the work that they're doing, on inclusive approaches. We need to build a bigger pie, and we need to make sure that that pie is available for everybody to participate in. We do also believe that technology will accelerate growth, and so we've also curated a focus on technology. I also want to make a second point, and then I will respond to your question. The second point is that the choice of presenting this book, which was published at the beginning of this year, All Hands on Deck, was very intentional on my part. And I was privileged that the authors in the UK accepted the title that I chose, which is All Hands on Deck. Because one of the things, and I'm obviously, I obviously drank the Kool-Aid of capital markets, because I started my life as a young woman at dinner with my parents, and they were invested in the likes of Unilever, Nestle, and those kinds of institutions, and they were not finance experts. And some of what paid for my school fees were dividends at the end and capital gains. So I started very early, from age 8, understanding the value of capital markets. So one thing for me is the call to action for us to leverage the capital markets more. Fortunately, we have an Honourable Minister of Finance, who set up a business. I think people were co-founders of IBTC. He set up a business in investment banking. One of the things that will help our nation is a focus on reasonably priced, long-term patient capital. And so part of what I advocate for is creating the environment that allows us to have long-term patient capital that is available to businesses, that is available to government. And when I say available to government, the current government, previous governments have invested in infrastructure, but we can do much more. And forgive me, I will praise sing my governor, the governor of Abia State, because I haven't told you for why I'm praise singing him, because I think he recognizes the importance of infrastructure. Because you're not going to move goods to market, people are not going to move, and we need to invest in infrastructure in this nation. I was looking at data as I was thinking about this conference, and China, over the years, invested 24% of its GDP in infrastructure. At best, we do 4 to 5%. If we want to bridge the infrastructure deficit in our nation, we would have to do at least 12%. So there's some foundational things we'll do. Fortunately, as has been pointed out by Mr. Peterside and the Emir, yes, the central bank, the Ministry of Finance are doing their best, but we need to scale. We need to do much more, and we need to raise money so that small businesses can do better, so that the government can do more, and we as individuals need to invest in our nation, and that's why the title All Hands on Deck. The second point I want to make was Oxford Global Think Tank chose to do its first report on reforming the African minerals sector to prosper Africa. We were intentional in choosing that because we have to diversify the economy. I mean, Nigeria, I'm told, has 40 minerals. And Dr. Fayemi, you were Minister of Solid Minerals, and we were in Cairo together a few days ago, and you were telling me some of the things that you had done to try and do better in terms of the mineral sector in Nigeria. But there are 40 minerals that we can exploit in commercial quantities. Why aren't we exploiting those 40 minerals in commercial quantities? Why are minerals still in the exclusive list of the federal government? Why can't we have it be decentralized so that every state can produce the minerals in their own state? Why aren't we decentralizing a nation of 230 million people? I see Dr. Lubenga Adeshina here, who lives in Cape Verde. There are 500,000 people living in Cape Verde. And we have states that are bigger than 500,000. There's no state that's smaller than 500,000. So why can't we decentralize the management of things, including our mineral sector, so that we can diversify this economy, so that we can have more of a revenue base? The Minister of Budget and Planning had talked, Honorable Minister, about the point you made about the ward development project. I applaud you for the ward development project. What I understand is that the idea is that for every ward, you'll focus on the business opportunities in that ward. So we'll be watching to see that you will implement that initiative. I think it's an absolutely laudable initiative. To take a minute or two on your question, I think that we need a whole rethink. One of the things that we talk about at the Oxford Global Think Tank is what truly leadership means. And I am very clear about what leadership means. I'm lucky, and I think most Nigerians are lucky, because Nigerian parenting teaches you values that you can use to be the greatest leader on earth. So over the years, I've thought about what are my leadership principles? My leadership principles are having character, having compassion, being competent, being the best at what I do, and finally, having courage to do the right thing all the time. I do believe that if we have leadership that focuses on that, we'll focus on making sure that our best and brightest are the ones that come up. We will stand aside so that the younger people will be able to take office. We will bring them on board because they have just as much a stake in this nation as we all have. And part of what we want to do is, by example, to showcase what we would like to see. And that's why it was important for us to have young people. I think we have about 100 young people in the room, students, as well as secondary school students, as well as university students. But I'm proud federal government girls of Were College. So pro-unitate to all of us. Thank you.
All right, we do have to wrap up. Because our time is fast spent, but I would very quickly, as a way of wrapping up, go back to Mr. Tadokita's side and say that conversation with a lot of young people on social media, they have consumed a lot of information, and some of them have come to this conclusion, which I'm just summarizing. They are stating very clearly that there are no elites in Nigeria. And their description of who an elite is will be somebody who care about the nation so much that their entire investment is geared towards making the nation better, not to enrich themselves and impoverish the rest of the nation. Would you subscribe to the opinion of the young? And also, whether you do or not, I'd like you to just, in a few sentences, help us understand, how do we begin to grow the kind of elites that will care about this nation so that we can get better and challenge those in authority to do right?
You know, I really want you that I will speak about what I want to speak. You see, you don't have to wrap up. But you know, I'm happy that Aruma mentioned Abia State. And I'm happy that the governor walked in to Abia State. See, there's a big mistake we're making when we're talking about reforms. People think it's about macro policy, central banking, finance. The number one difference is sincerity. Did the leader come to serve, or did he come to steal? The biggest threat to economic reform in Nigeria, and in my entire adult life, have been two things: corruption and state capture. So when the Emir of Kano is saying that you are advising people, Listen, I confess, Papayos Ayun was there. In Jonathan's government, I know Jonathan would like me saying it, of the economic team. Half the time, when I was arguing about what should be done for the economy and for Nigeria, people in the villa told me to my hearing, you see, if we listen to everything that Tido is saying, we came in here poor, we will live poor. He's saying these things because he already has money. So it's not that people don't know the correct things. Let's not deceive ourselves. Corruption and state capture is driving people to pursue policies that give them a chance to capture an increasing slice of what belongs to everybody for themselves. So they are deliberately, so even when the Emir of Kano goes to advise, say, the former President Buhari and he leaves, there are people around him who know why they want a different policy. And it's about state capture and corruption. Let's call a spade a spade. The biggest difference between, I'm told by those from Abia, I'm not from their state, but Nigeria is an open society. People from Abia tell me that the biggest difference between this governor and the past, he's the only one that came to serve. I don't know whether it's true or not, but let's just imagine it is true. So if somebody did not come to serve, and you're talking about fiscal and monetary reform, the guy came to steal. So forget it. As he increased the revenue for everybody, he hijacks the bulk of. Have you seen governors in this current regime who have taken the extra revenue to go and buy luxury SUVs for MS and so on? Is that what the revenue is for? I'm not saying a beneficiary. So don't be afraid. So the point I'm making is that the finance minister is not the one in charge. He cannot stop a governor from taking the increased revenue from all these good measures and misusing it. These are some of these states. Education they met is a disaster. In the first 2 years hence, they've done nothing to improve education. But they bought luxury SUVs for all kinds of people. So it's about state capture and corruption. Did somebody come to sell? If he come to sell, forget it. Now, it's not a Nigerian problem. All over Africa, including, I may not name too many countries, but many of the leaders did not come to sell. They came to capture what belongs to everybody, that's for the common good, for themselves and a narrow elite. Until we solve that problem, we will remain in this stew. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Your final word on the issue of developing the next generation of leaders and giving them a chance early so that it doesn't keep getting worse. So we've got to wrap up now.
I think the point you made about young people saying that there is no elite in Nigeria is extremely important. Because it's Aruma.
Sorry, I'm worrying about the Honorable Minister.
No, the Minister will listen to the Emir for 30 seconds. And okay, thank you. All right, so I'll just, actually the word is that Nigeria is a classless society. If you take the people you call leaders, go to the Senate, go to the House of Reps, you can go and pick 109 Nigerians at random without election. Put them in the Senate chambers, and the results may not be different from what you're getting now. Okay? Because the truth is, you have highly educated people in government, but they behave like illiterates. They forget their education behind. When you talk about praise singing, why would a man who is an educated man, an accomplished man, why would he be a praise singer to anyone? Why would he not be able to face his boss and say, "Oh God, we're not doing that, this is the truth"? And why would a person in authority not have the confidence to listen to those around him and take criticism? So you've got people who are supposed to be the representatives of the values of society. By the time you become a governor, honestly, you should be beyond looking for money. You have been given an opportunity to take care of the lives of millions of people, to educate children, to save lives, to provide health care, to build infrastructure. All you are thinking of is a car, a house. I mean, are you that cheap? Or some bank account? And you see them, and at the end of the day, they leave office. After a few years, they die, and the children are fighting over the money. Then they get the money, and then they go on drugs, and everything is wasted. That money would have been better spent educating millions of young people and saving lives. So if we really want to fix this country, we need to have a class. The ruling class needs to have values. Values beyond stomach infrastructure.
Thank you very much. The Honourable Minister has got to go, so I will say thank you very much. I was going to ask my dear sister Aruna Ote to just say one word on the global think tank, one word on the global think tank in Nigeria and how that will make the changes. Thank you. So we've got to go.
Sorry, so I don't miss the minister. I can talk about it in my closing.
So
Thank you.
in that case, maybe he wants to join because I hear you're supposed to join with Potter. Can you please bring the book so that while the minister is here, you can just take a picture of the book. So somebody bring the books.
It's not the book presentation, but since the minister is leaving, we can just get copies, whole copies. Good idea.
Please just appreciate the power, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. All of them who are members of the panel for the sake of the country, all their hands are on deck. Let me recognize and welcome here my government of Abia State, Dr. Alex Chioma Ote. Also in our midst, we have the Permanent Secretary, Minister of Science, Minerals.
We're live in Abuja at the Oxford Global Think Tank Leadership Conference, the Economic Leaders Panel, where we had our Editor-in-Chief, Kayode Akinsemi, drive conversation on the panel alongside other dignitaries, and of course the focus on government's need to be sensitive to the needs of the people, putting the people ahead of their pockets. And I believe our coverage of the OGTT, Oxford Global Think Tank Leadership Conference, has, well, we're putting that on hold as we segue into an abridged version of Business Edge today.